In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the AT-AT driver for the Saga collection. This was one of the very first action figures released in the Saga collection. I'm trying to think what number he was. I think he may have been 6 or 8, one of the two. General Veers I know was number 7, so he was around that ballpark range. And this was actually the very first Saga collection action figure I ever got, all the way back in 2006. I first heard about AT-AT driver. I was like, whoa, we're finally getting an action figure of him. And I knew instantly that this is the one I wanted for my collection. I'm glad I got him. And it was one of the, I'm trying to think, so I had some Stormtroopers before this, but this was probably one of the first really unique Imperial Troopers that I ever got in my collection. So he's been with me for 17 years now, both of these actually. So this one here, actually, my mom back in 2006 got this for me, and she said that store she worked at that I knew that this was something that I probably would have wanted for my collection, so she went ahead and got it for me, and it's something I cherished ever since. And this one, an old friend that I haven't seen in many years now, actually got this for me around Christmas time, and that's something that's stayed in my collection ever since. He'd probably be shocked if he saw this video today or we bumped into one another, knowing that I still have this all these years later. And there's a couple of other action figures I've gotten from other friends throughout the years that at some point I'll get around to reviewing, but they'd probably be surprised to know that I still have it all these years later. So pretty interesting backstory between the two figures. They are a little bit different. In fact, this one's slightly broken, mostly along the harness here. It's and breaking apart right there, as you can see. But it's not the end of the world. As long as you wedge it on his leg a certain way, it pretty much stays into place. I could glue it, but I don't really want to get into that, especially around an area like that where, you know, it could potentially get on this leg, and I think it'd just be more trouble than it's worth. And the tubes to his helmet on this one seems like it's more flared out, while this one it's a little bit more compressed. So that's pretty interesting. That's one way I've always determined between the two, is not only for the broken harness, but between the breathing tubes, I would assume there. So what more can I say about this action figure? Throughout the years, I still think this might be the best AT-AT driver we've gotten to date. Unfortunately, I don't have an AT-AT to put these guys in, and I've never owned one. I do plan on getting one at some point. The prices on them, while, yeah, so especially the Empire Strikes Back AT-AT from the Shadows of the Dark Side line, that one's more expensive, but the 2006 indoor AT-AT, that one's not the worst. Of course, these guys are more specific to Hoth instead, and the drivers that usually come with the indoor AT-ATs are a little bit different. I think they usually have like black boots or something like that. But I would like to own one at some point, and I am eyeing one. And at some point, I'll go ahead and get one. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, but someday I will. I don't think Hasbro will probably get around to releasing one in TVC again, unless it's like a HasLab project or something like that, or it's some rare exclusive where you're going to have to jump through a million hoops just to get to it. But I would like to get one of the ones from the past at some point. And since then, for the drivers themselves, so Legacy Collection did get one, but unfortunately I think that one was a little bit of a downgrade from this one. It had a removable helmet, and it just didn't look very good, in my opinion. And I think maybe Power of the Force got one. I don't recall. But there's not a whole lot of versions of the driver out there. There might be like 3, maybe 4 at most. And of course, there's various repaints. Like I said, the indoor ones have black boots, small things like that, for example. But as far as sculpts, there might only be like 3 or 4 different samples out there. So let's just go ahead and take a closer look at this guy. So for the sculpt itself, I think it looks pretty good. Can't really ask for much more, much less, quite frankly. He looks exactly like an AT-AT driver, and he serves his purpose. Helmet sculpt is really good. Like I mentioned, it is not a removable helmet, which I think helps with the proportions for this and the sculpting work, and it looks really good. Has the Imperial emblem there. Some nice paint detailing. Has a little bit of red on his mouth visor there. And he has the breathing tubes attached to the back of his helmet here. Let's go to his chest box there, which has some really nice detailing in that. Has his armor there, and his shoulder armor, white gloves, and gray suit mostly. He does have some pockets sculpted into his trousers there, which look pretty good. Then he has white boots, a little bit of detailing in them. Then he has this harness here, which unfortunately is kind of a stiff harness. I don't know what Hasbro was going for with this, because it's not something that you can take apart like the Taiko Chelchu, I think his last name is, the A-Wing pilot from Return of the Jedi. His harness is very similar to this, and you're able to take it apart if you need to. And some of the X-Wing pilots that have harnesses like this, you're able to flex it a little bit, but this one you can't. So you can see it's pretty tight on there. So I have no idea how you'd be able to sit these guys down, quite frankly. I suppose if there might be a method behind it, or if you're like this poor guy here, you could just rip the harness and then you'd be able to do that. And yeah, they're both exactly the same. In terms of the articulation, he does have a ball joint in the head. Has a pretty good range of motion, even with tubes attached to his helmet. He does have hinge at the shoulders, which has a pretty good range of motion. Swivel elbows, which I don't think is really that big of a deal. I know some people don't like it, but I think it's okay for this guy. If you have him in an AT-AT, there's only going to be so many poses you have him in anyway, and you can definitely meet all those poses with just the elbow articulation alone. He does have swivel forearms, I suppose. Yeah. No articulation in the waist, which really isn't a big deal. Even if it did have waist articulation with that harness there, you're just not going to get a lot out of it. But he does have swivel hips and hinged knees, which go about 90 degrees, and nothing in the ankles. So overall, I think the articulation's okay for this guy. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. Can meet just about any demand. In terms of weapons and accessories, he's pretty light on it, but he doesn't really need them much. He does have an E11, and he stands pretty good on his own, as you can see. Yeah, it's a little wobbly, but he'll balance. He does have the signature stand. This is Empire Strikes Back, an AT-AT driver. And he stands pretty good on this. I will say that I think you kind of have to angle him at a certain stance in order to make it look kind of natural. And then it does come with, I'm pretty sure this guy here did come with a blue Darth Vader, and it might very well be this one. And it was the very first hologram I got at the time for the Saga collection, obviously, since this was the first figure I got. So pretty nice for Darth Vader. I did bring out the red one as well, and I'll show that off in a different video here soon. But yeah, pretty nice. Looks good for Vader. Has his lightsaber out, dueling position. Some really nice detailing in this too. They kind of did some of the textures on his suit and his cape there. He does have the Imperial emblem at the bottom. Yeah, these are fun to collect. some point I do hope to get them all, and I think I'm getting pretty close to owning at least one sample of everything at this point. There's not a whole lot of them out there, but when you buy these figures brand new, especially at this time, it's just the luck of the draw, and you really don't have a lot of choice as to what you get, especially if there's only one of the figure. And for me, I got a whole bunch of these Darth Vaders at the time. I didn't get so much of any of the other ones. I got a couple Stormtroopers. I got a couple of the Jedi. But I would say probably like 7 out of the 10 action figures I got back in 2006 had this Darth Vader hologram. I got so many of the red ones specifically just lying around the house. These blue ones look pretty good, especially if these guys are in, or if these are in sunlight. They're very reflective and look exactly like a hologram, so that's really neat. These guys here, and just to do a small comparison, I'll bring out their leading general here, General Veers. We'll have a video coming up as well, and they all look really good together. I'm happy to own all these 3 troopers in my collection. Well, the 2 troopers and the 1 general. Something that's all 3 of these have been in my collection for 17 years. Cherish them greatly. So would I recommend this AT-AT driver for your collection? I would. I think it's the best one that Hasbro's ever made, and it's probably going to stay that way for a long time. Again, it's been almost 15 years since we've gotten an AT-AT driver, I think, from Hasbro, unless it was repacked a couple times after that, which is possible. Maybe some of the TVC AT-ATs had repacks of this, but we haven't got a new sculpt in about 15 years or so. And I don't know if Hasbro is going to get around to the driver in the vintage collection. I know it's been thrown around every now and then that we should get a new driver, but I don't know. I just have this feeling that it's probably not going to happen, at least anytime soon. But never say never. A couple months from now, maybe Hasbro will announce something, but I doubt it. But even if they do, I would still recommend this guy for your collection. And can't really have enough drivers. Need at least 2, I would say. And it's a great sculpt overall, and it's good enough. And I think these guys are still fairly affordable. It's been a while since I've checked on prices, but when I have checked on them, I don't recall thinking, oh, that's a lot more than I would have thought. Usually it's probably in like the $10 or $20 range, I would say, even brand new. So I would say track some of these guys down if you don't own any already. Highly recommended action figure all around. And some of my favorite Imperials in my collection. But anyways, that concludes this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for plenty more reviews in the future. Always be lots more to come. If you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I always greatly appreciate all your support. And check out some links in the description if you have not done so already. And as always, thanks for watching.